You are kindly requested to remain standing until after the national salute.
Can we keep standing for the singing of the national anthem, please? You may be seated. Thank you very much. Before we start the program, let me just introduce my fellow director for this morning, former Director General in Health and International Affairs, Dr. Ayanda and Saluba. My name is Faisal Randera. My name is Faisal Randera. Can I? Okay, I assume everybody heard Ayanda's name being mentioned, right? Thank you very much. Can I welcome the Premier to come and welcome everybody, please?
Thank you so much, program directors. Truly appreciate the opportunity. The presence of our President, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, the presence of former presidents, the presence of ministers and former ministers, the presence of ambassadors and former ambassadors, the presence of business leaders, traditional leaders, the presence of young and old people is an affirmation that today we are bidding farewell to a person of impeccable credentials, a freedom fighter and a diplomat. On behalf of the people of Gauteng and all its institutions, we bow down to honor and appreciate your presence. We join you and many others across the globe to extend our heartfelt condolences to the family and comrades of Comrade Aziz Pahad. We are saddened by his departure, but proud of his work and teachings. The sun went down with a true leader of our time, a very dignified member of our movement and the party, the one who placed his entire life at the service of his country and people. We stand here to declare that what we used to appreciate and cherish has left us. Our minds may function, but our thoughts are troubled. Death has robbed the people of our country of one of its finest sons who valued the freedom of his people more than his own life and personal comfort. It is difficult to describe the pain and the sadness in our hearts as we bid goodbye to our beloved former Deputy Minister, whom we have shared so much over a long period. Former Deputy Minister Aziz Pahad is so much more than a fellow comrade. He was part of our well-being, our surroundings, and our work. Comrade Aziz, ours was to marvel at your dedication and hard work. Comrade Aziz, ours was to appreciate your humility and commitment to our cause. Comrade Aziz, ours was to appreciate the role you played to serve and service our people and the world. Go well, our beloved brother, even though you are leaving us with a huge task to match or exceed the good work that we have done within and with your generation. Fellow countrymen and women, let's release him. He played his part, ours not only to shower him with praises, but to learn from his contributions to our cause, to take leave from his character, belief, and teachings. May God be with your family and friends and those that work closely with you. Go well, my beloved diplomat. Go well, cadre of our movement. Go well, my leader. Even though the struggle for a truly non-racial and prosperous South Africa may be under threat, be assured, betrayal is not an option. Lala ngoxolo.
Thank you very much, Premier. We have come here today to bid farewell to our friend, our former Deputy Minister, our member of the ANC and the Communist Party, Aziz Pahad. Before we proceed, let me just acknowledge a few people. I know there's many people that I've seen this morning. There are many people in the audience today, and everybody is very important, but I'm going to acknowledge a few people. So let me start with our President of the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa. Welcome, President. Thank you very much for being here today. Let me then acknowledge former President Thabo Mbeki and Mrs. Mbeki, and also former President Kgalema Motlanthe and Mrs. Motlanthe. Thank you very much for being here. There are many ministers in our audience today, and let me say welcome to them as well. Premiers and MECs from the provinces who have come here today, you're all welcome. We, of course, have many members of the diplomatic community present. You too are welcome. Let me then acknowledge the family members. Firstly, Anjana, Aziz's wife, who's here with us today, and of course, Sam Gurney, who's come all the way from London, Aziz, the son of Aziz. I know he was not able to bring his daughter with him, but we miss her today. There are other members of the Anjana's family here and Pahad family here. Let me acknowledge all of them present. Of course, the one brother that remains standing, as he said, as he reminded me today, is Nasim Pahad. Welcome, Nasim. Can't but remember that a few months ago we said goodbye to another Pahad brother, Minister Aziz Pahad, and let me welcome Meg Pahad and her family here today as well. Thank you very much. Let me also acknowledge the South African Police and the SANDF present here today. Thank you very much, everybody, for being present. Let me then, from the time that Aziz passed on Wednesday evening, there's been many messages that have come through. Some of the words that have been used to describe Aziz, I'd like to capture today. It's been said that he's had great political insight and a wonderful sense of humor, a great strategist, a lifelong freedom fighter, someone who showed great empathy and integrity, someone who, with his loss, makes the country poorer, a true son of the soil. His grasp of politics was unparalleled. Somebody described him as a cheap whip of deputy ministers. He had huge wisdom and intellect. A former minister described him as someone with impish humor. Of course, Aziz was a lover of partying and jazz. And somebody described and said a big tree has fallen. Before I ask the first speaker to come, I just want to read something from Aziz's book that came out in 2014. It was called An Insurgent Diplomat. And in his concluding chapter, Aziz said the following: "History is replete with the tragic consequences of progressive political parties that fail to respond to the needs of ordinary people. Ultimately, we are servants of the people, and we must be honest and sincere in the face of our manifest failures as stewards of this country's democracy. In short, we need to reclaim the ideological and political centers of gravity that have shaped the Congress movement." He went on to say, "Our destiny is inextricably interwoven with that of the African continent and its people." Let me then call Ambassador Walile Nhlapo to the stage. Walile has been a lifelong friend of Aziz's. Of course, some people will say that with George Nene and Aziz, they were the three musketeers of foreign affairs and the policies that were developed in that time. Ambassador?
Could we also just request the driver of a car JP 60ZTGP. JP 60ZTGP, please kindly remove it.
I'm sorry, this technology is revolting. Program directors, thank you for giving me this opportunity. But thank you, Comrade Faisal, for making my life easy by acknowledging all those who are here that needed to be acknowledged. But allow me to pay my respect to the President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Matamela Enda. Let me also, in the same way, extend my respect to the former President Thabo Mbeki and Sis Zanele, and Khalima Mutlante. I think I'm going to upgrade somebody today and say Sis Kuku, normally called Mrs. Mutlante. The Speaker of Parliament is here with his entourage from that institution in which Comrade Aziz also served. And I think it will be not good of me not to acknowledge them in a manner quite familiar to them. Order. But let me also say welcome to all the ambassadors that I've seen here, and the former ambassadors of the Republic of South Africa. We served under Aziz Pahad, and all the comrades and friends that are here with us today. It is indeed with a heavy heart that I convey my condolences to my dear sister Angina and the entire Pahad family. Many of us who are here present and those who are absent will have to live with the sad and painful reality that Aziz is gone to have his eternal rest. A well-deserved one after what he has gone through. The last time I saw Aziz, it was at this same venue, at the funeral of his brother, Isop. I was sitting somewhere there when his convoy arrived. In his, what he normally called a prem, which was his wheelchair. They stopped a bit and I went to greet him. And he said to me, "When are you coming home to see me?" Because that bottle of vodka is still there. And I said, rest assured, I will do that. Unfortunately, that never happened until I'm here. The floods of tributes that we witnessed since his passing informs us that he has made a lasting impression on many people, both here at home and abroad. Indeed, his revolutionary spirit lives on. When I met Aziz for the first time in 1977, in our camp in Nova Katanga in the south of Angola, he was accompanying Dr. Dadu, who had come to visit us there. But I also had the rare honor and privilege to work with him in London, in the Department of International Affairs of the ANC, the Department of Foreign Affairs. Little did I know that on a day like this, I will be standing here to pay tribute to him at his funeral. Aziz was an exceptional embodiment of underground principles and a master operative. He valued his contacts and understood the need to protect them in the risky tasks that he assigned them. He placed the highest value on secrecy and the need to know rule. He became a trusted confidant to many in the leadership of our Revolutionary Alliance, and that is why he was entrusted with some of the most sensitive tasks in our movement. Aziz was very resourceful and organized, though sometimes he appeared chaotic. He was particularly meticulous in the gathering, processing, and use of information. He was a prolific reader, a good listener, and one of the best note-takers that I've ever come across. And this is because he had a profound respect for knowledge and institutional memory. He possessed a sharp and analytical mind, but also believed in practice in order to bring about change. This is what made him a genuine Marxist and a good communist, as Ronnie Caceres will attest. He understood the importance of building lasting relationships with diplomats from all geographic regions, hence his deep understanding of geographical realities. He knew and made friends with many diplomats who were accredited to this country and paid particular attention to their interests and needs. He never missed an opportunity to engage them, and very often organized farewell functions on their departure. Aziz believed in imparting knowledge and investing in young people. I've seen some of them here. And made friends to many, and often insisted that they call him by his first name. He sometimes did the same to his immediate staff and subordinates, whilst commanding their utmost respect and loyalty. His obituary is a testimony of the values and principles that shaped Aziz, the Aziz we came to love and respect. We proudly say farewell to a modest, caring and sharing person, a mentor to many young diplomats and cadres of our glorious movement, a committed patriot and preeminent Pan-Africanist who loved our continent and paid the greatest respect to its people. We shall miss his deep sense of humor and genuine friendship. Hamba kahle mkhonto, lala ngoxolo kawele sizwe. Great George Nene, Jackie Silibi, Billy Masetla, Ronnie Mamwepa, and the many martyrs of our struggle and fraternal parties. But do me one last favor. Tell Judge Nene that indeed I've been receiving his WhatsApp messages. Part of the reason why I did not respond quite often is when he started inviting me to join them. Please tell him that that is not going to happen. I'm not going anywhere. And if he wants more people who are willing, I can provide him with some contact details of some of the people I've seen here who seem to be ready and willing to accept such an invitation. Good night, Aziz.
Thank you, Comrade Wolile, for adding all the richness to Aziz's life. Okay, let me then move on and welcome Comrade former Minister Ronnie Caceres, who has also known Aziz for a long time. I mean, I know that their history starts in London. They were, as Comrade Wolile has reminded us, Aziz was also a member of the Communist Party. Comrade Ronnie is speaking here today on behalf of the South African Communist Party. The General Secretary, Solly Mapaile, could not make it, and therefore Comrade Ronnie is filling in. Thank you, Comrade Ronnie.
Amandla, long live the glorious memory of Aziz Pahad. Long live. Dumilang, Sanibonani, Assalamu alaikum. Comrade President Ramaphosa, former Comrade Presidents Mbeki and Khalima, and your dear wives. Special greetings and condolences to Aziz's partner who stood behind him, my dear comrade. Angela, thanks for all you've done for him. And the whole Pahad family. All dignitaries here, friends, comrades, etc. Aziz Pahad and Comrade Sam, the fine son, chip off the old block from London, who knew which team to support, unlike your father.
Shona Malanga, Shona.
Through and through. Thanks for being here, Sam, all the way from London. But I wanted to start a promise I made to Comrade Aziz when we were having a toast to the 70th birthday of Comrade Yusuf Dadu. And well into my cups, I sang a song of sorts from Bertolt Brecht, which I think a lot of us know. And it goes, there are those who struggle for a year, and that is good. There are those who struggle for 20 years, and that's better. And then there are those who struggled, served all their lives. And those are the ones we cannot do without. Aziz is one of those, like his brother Issof. He ran a good race, and he kept the faith. But he said to me, hey, Kumalo, if I go before you, promise me you're going to express the words of Brecht. And I said to him, but Aziz, I'll go long before you. And then one day, we were experimenting with a rocket in Hampstead Heath. A rocket that was destined to blow up in the sky and bring leaflets to the ground. But it changed course, and it came straight for Aziz and myself, and we jumped behind a tree, and it blew up on the tree. We were shaken, and we went to, I'll call it a local tea house, and had a strong cup of tea or two. And he says to me, in that marvelous humor of his, he said, hey man, we both could have been caught by the Grim Reaper. Who then would have pronounced those wonderful words of Brecht on our parting? So Aziz, I've kept my pact with you. But of course, as we've heard in a wonderful oration from you, Comrade Walili, thank you so much. We've heard of how extraordinary and delightful he was as a human being, a national hero and an international figure adored by those who need solidarity as we stand in the anti-imperialist camp against US imperialism, and how delighted he would be to have seen here today the ambassadors from Cuba and the Bolivarian Revolution, of Venezuela, and so many others around the world. He was steeled in the struggle. He was firm. Aziz Pahad was as solid as a rock. And then the dialectic, the soft man, the jocular man, so beloved, a friend to everybody. And little wonder that in his enormous work, which carried so much danger, as we all faced in the struggle at home and in exile for so many decades, people responded to this beloved human being, which is why there'll be plenty tears shed, not just in our country and our continent, which, as Walili pointed out, he loved and served, but wherever people struggle for justice, for peace, for security, against predator imperialism, the number one enemy of humankind, US imperialism and its allies. And that's the words of Aziz Pahad, I can assure you, in our constant discussions, him and Isop and friends. Thank you. I'm privileged to bring greetings from the Communist Party to this gathering to greet the ANC and the allies here. And I'll come back to this, Comrade Program Director, if I may, at the end. But we remember all the things that Comrade Walili had to say, his courage, dedication, selflessness in serving our people in a struggle which he helped so much to do, to bring about the liberation of our country and beyond in terms of the National Democratic Revolution, so that we should bring the socio-economic equality and rewards to our people. I'm basically going to rush through the many hats that Comrade Aziz wore. But let me first say, Walili, he wasn't just the chief whip to deputy ministers. I was a deputy minister with him initially in the first parliament. As we know, I became a minister. He remained deputy minister for 14 years, serving really foreign ministers from Comrade Alfred Nzo, God bless him, Comrade Nkosazana and others, but really serving our President Mbeki. And he was a man who had the qualities of a minister, but the service to our President Mbeki was very vital, and he never complained, as I think many would, Comrade President Mbeki. Oh, shouldn't I be a minister and wear a ministerial hat? He's had many, many hats, not a ministerial hat, but he wore these hats as a minister supreme. That was our Aziz. And you know, we can roll off, I counted last night, something like 20 hats that Aziz Pahad wore throughout his life. Deputy minister, and I said he wasn't just a chief whip to the deputies, he was a chief whip to us ministers in Nkosazana. We know that very well. And not only that, Comrade Presidents, he was our commissar. And everybody, to this day, when it was Comrade Isop's funeral and farewell, and others, at other events, you could hear the next crop, the next generation, Comrade Lesufi, all paying, Comrade Phoebe and others, all paying such gratitude to the leadership of Comrade Aziz. So the hats that he wore, we could go through them very quickly, but I think you know, and I'm getting worried about the time, I must get my end punch, my Communist Party message, Comrade President Ramaphosa. Very friendly one, let me warn you in advance. But you know, we talk about building the underground from London, the clandestine work. At first, Dr. Dadu, Slovo, they were leading that. By the time Dadu had passed on, Slovo, myself were in Africa. Aziz was the commander, and under the PMC, Comrade Thabo, he was the commander of the UK. Well, Lily, you know that well. Underground work, above ground. Comrade Sam, you know so well, his work in building the anti-apartheid movement was absolutely outstanding. What people don't know is how he helped our intelligence and security department of Comrade Mzwaipaliso, a great hero of our country, by the way, in building the means to detect the enemy's infiltration. And in the end, back in South Africa, Comrade Cyril, Comrade Khalima, you know, Comrade Mzwai had to get it in the neck. Because, of course, when you're dealing with enemy agents, you know, it's a tough battle. And he carried that responsibility, and he was pleased to admit it. Comrade Aziz worked with him. And Comrade Aziz from London, and this is something I need to read out, Comrade Angela, Comrade Pahad family, which isn't very well known, but we had a large group of war resistors from this country refusing to serve, who arrived in London. And they were quite diverse and also, to some degree, politically confused. Comrade Aziz was the responsible comrade to deal with them. And one of their number has written to me, reminding me as follows, and writes, about that time when Comrade Aziz dealt with the war resistors in Britain and linked back to the end conscription organization in this country, the young whites refusing to fight, and it was a tremendous blow to the apartheid military machine. So Bill Anderson writes, Aziz was so warm and welcoming to all of us, ever watchful for the numerous security issues that arose, advising and steering the political direction of the War Resistors Committee, drawing some into the ANC. And I can tell you the ones he drew into the ANC were giving us first-class information about the SADF, their plans, their invasion of Angola, when the Cuban and the Angolans were able to drive them out from the Battle of Quito Carnival, which was a tipping point, Comrade Lesufi, in the struggle to free Africa and Southern Africa. They had information. For I was chief of intelligence. Aziz was sending it to me. I was meeting the Cuban comrades, the Angolan comrades, their military intelligence, even the president, and presenting the information, which meant that we played a role in helping to defeat the SADF from Quito Carnival, out of Angola, the independence of Namibia. The dominoes fell and we became free in South Africa. So, comrades, another 20 hats that I could speak of, Comrade Thabo, Comrade Cyril and Khalima and all. I'll keep you here too long, and you know how I can ramble. So let me just come to the fact that, yes, I'm here about the Communist Party. It's another hat. Iskoko ezibomvu. I hope my pronouncement's understood. The red hat. We live at a time when runaway capitalism in its highest imperialist phase has become this force that is threatening us all. Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, America, Latino, Africa, Asia, everywhere. And in terms of what we face, we can make these points, and I can assure you, and we don't make up what comrades who pass on have had to say. Comrade Aziz well understood this, and with the two brothers, we could argue, but we always were at the heart in such agreement. US imperialism and its NATO tool, and what this is doing politically, socially, culturally, economically, and to Mother Earth. And Comrade Cyril, if I can say that, Ramaphosa, our president, you're carrying the responsibility now from Comrade Kalima, Comrade Mbeki, Comrade Madiba. We know what it's like in that hot seat. You've got to juggle balls, etc. When we listen to you and what you're achieving, of course we understand. You can't just sit in the background and prattle on very simple statements. It's incredibly difficult. Comrade Nkosazana as a former foreign minister. But key and central is that we have to unite internationally, the global south, and with Europe, and with Russia and China and the new order. And in terms of that, if we do not strengthen the anti-imperialist cause, make no errors, coming to the end, thank you, or are you just shutting me up? Make no mistake, they will be knocking on our door, Comrade Cyril, not as Victoria Newland, one of the most atrocious human beings, I will say, responsible and brags about the Maidan coup. They won't be coming knocking softly. They'll be coming with their big stick. And it's happening everywhere. Why are the African states of West Africa in such rebellion against the French and the USA? I think this is really what I wanted to say from the party side. I want to just add that, Comrade President, the party is very concerned about the austerity measures. It's the poor of our country that will suffer. Let me end then by saying that what we need to do as a country, if I may, as I end, is this. And it's an analogy, comrades. It's an analogy about two astonishing brothers called Aziz and Isop. They were so close, they were so unified, they could have differences, but they always came to the right position. And this is Comrade Aziz and Comrade Isop's legacy. So the analogy, Comrade President and all, is what the party and the ANC and COSATU need to follow. Is that solidarity, comrades, of the brothers Pahad, more profound than any other brothers in history. Wright brothers, brothers Karamazov, Warner brothers. So the brothers Pahad, let's recall that. So Comrade Faisal, you'll be very pleased to hear that I come to the end of 20 hats, but what I can't resist saying, if I've got 1 minute, comrades, I wear here, hold the paper and give it to me what I did here. I proudly wear a medal here. It's the medal of the Lutuli detachment, the first MK detachment. Comrade Aziz Pahad, Comrade Isop, and so many others. Well, Lily, I think you're June 16th. We're the first detachment, Comrade Tama, you have won us. And I'm wearing it today. I normally don't. I normally don't wear suits. But for Aziz Pahad, the diplomat, I had to come in a suit, the red tie of the party, and the Lutuli detachment. So let's end. Let's end. Long live the spirit of Comrade Aziz Pahad. Long live. Long live. Sing Amasoja, Galutuli. That was our song. Galutuli, napi napi. Amandla, thank you, comrades.
Comrade Ronnie a big hand, please. Comrade Ronnie, I hope you realize that you've cut into the President's speech. Comrade Ronnie promised to take 8 minutes. He's taken 25 minutes, but nonetheless, full of history and a richness that we all need to listen to. Thank you, Comrade Ronnie. Okay, before I sit down and hand over to Ayanda, Dr. Ayanda Ansaluba, I just want to take the opportunity to thank a number of people. I don't know if everybody knows, but Comrade Aziz was unwell for the last year, I would say. And during this time, he was looked after by doctors and health workers in Durban, here in Johannesburg. And yes, I would like to mention all of them, but I think not. But I would like to at least mention Dr. Abdul, who is here today, who came and spent a great deal of time supporting Anjana, looking after Aziz. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul. And thank you to the doctors who looked after Aziz. Okay, let me hand over to Ayanda.
Thanks, Faisal. Mr. President, of course I had known Aziz over a number of years, but my close association with Aziz dates back to when I joined the then Department of Foreign Affairs. He was part of a strike force that included the likes of Willie Nhlapo, Kingsley Mamabolo, Jesse Duarte, Abdul Minty, George Nene, Uncle Billy Modise, Kingsley Makubela, Sis Lindy Mabuza, Sis Barbara Masekela, and many others, of course including the irrepressible Ronnie Mamoepa. At the top of this team was a trio of Aziz, Sue van der Merwe, and the person I've come to call lovingly only as my boss, Minister Nkosazana. This was a formidable team, enjoying the steady guidance of President Mbeki. It is now my honor and privilege to invite you, Minister Nkosazana. Dlamini Zuma.
Shona Malanga, Shona Malanga, Shona Malanga, Shona Malanga, Shona Malanga.
Viva the spirit of Aziz Pahad, viva. Thank you, Ayanda. Ayanda is my boss. He's been my boss for a long time. Ministers think they are bosses. They are not. It's the DGs who are bosses. So thank you. He's my boss even today. Program directors, President of the Republic, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, the former President, President Mbeki and Sisanele, President Wamaloba, President Halima, Nosiskuku. I want to greet, special greeting to the Pahad family, Anjana, Sam, and Meg, and all the members of the Pahad family. Ministers who are here, premiers who are here, the Speaker of Parliament, members of Parliament, leaders of the Alliance, leaders of political parties, mayors, councillors, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the media, fellow mourners. I join millions from across South Africa, and the world in conveying our deepest and sincerest condolences to the family of Comrade Aziz Pahad. We gather here today to bid farewell, but also to celebrate a life well lived. To a giant of our struggle, an internationalist, a geopolitical strategist, a soldier of our liberation movement, a visionary, and a diplomat par excellence. The history and the story of our liberation would not be complete without Aziz's contribution. It is no coincidence that he wrote in his biography that his life and his life experience cannot be separated from the ANC or the SACP. I want to say that Comrade Aziz has emerged as one of the finest cadres to ever be produced within the ranks of our liberation movement. And I think the evidence of that has come from Welile, Roni, and many other people who have said a lot about him. I'm going to talk about Aziz as a teacher. He never studied to be a teacher, and a mentor. Because I first met Aziz when I was in my 20s. Can you imagine? In my 20s. In London. He was part of a group of comrades who were there, who welcomed us. I arrived there in 1976. He and other comrades mentored us, taught us a lot about solidarity, the solidarity movement, and we worked the anti-apartheid movement not only in the UK, across Europe and elsewhere. And of course, he had many other heads, which in the interest of time I won't mention. But I want to talk about him also as a diplomat. When I was appointed to be Minister of Foreign Affairs, I was shocked, actually, and intimidated. Comrade Tabo is laughing because he knows what I said when he appointed me. But I took comfort in the knowledge that Comrade Aziz was there, and many other comrades that have been mentioned, like Comrade Welile, George, and many others. And I knew that I would have an excellent mentor and guide, even in that space. And indeed, I would say that he channeled his knowledge, his sharp intellect, in mentoring many of us in ways that few can. It was a privilege and an honor to walk in his trail. In foreign affairs, he knew the international scene completely. But I want to talk about his contribution in the area in the Middle East. He was really in the front line of what we did as in foreign affairs everywhere, but especially in the Middle East. And he didn't only do that during his time as deputy minister, even during his retirement, not sure whether he retired, but during that time when he left government. And in his contribution to what was happening in the Middle East and in the marginalized world, he always reminded us, without saying it, of the words of President Mandela, who once said, and I quote, "We South Africans cannot consider ourselves free until Palestinian people are free," close quote. So the struggle continues until the Palestinians are free. And Comrade Aziz made sure that that struggle continues. He was a true revolutionary, driven by the deep sense of love for the people. And he believed that through his contribution and many others, we should bequeath to future generations a better world than the one we found. And indeed, he did that. He's bequeathed to future generations a better world than the one he found. It is up to us to pick up the spear, find and continue our mission, and make sure that our movement is united in action and in securing a better life for the people of South Africa. It is up to us now to release him, to take his well-deserved rest amongst the galaxy of our heroes and heroines as we launch the beautiful tapestry of his life. Hamba kahle, Comrade Aziz. And let Comrades Anton Lembede, Tata Madiba, Lutuli, Comrade Tambo, Nkosi Albert open the doors for you wherever they are. Of course, Madiba said, wherever he'll be, there must be an ANC branch. So I hope Comrade Aziz has joined that ANC branch. Of course, during these challenging times for our movement, many lessons that Aziz have left us must shape the ways we act. And may his sacrifices not be in vain. May our actions honor his memory as the finest cadre of the African National Congress. May the passing of Comrade Aziz enable us to pause and think about where we are going and how we should go. May we be like Comrade Aziz's generation, who were not only able to preempt the challenges, but also were able to outmaneuver them in a manner that delivered this freedom that we enjoy today. And may we also remember that this freedom was not free, and so we should not squander it. And we also can't be free, besides the freedom of the Palestinians, until nobody goes to bed hungry in this country, until we've lifted people out of poverty, until you have dealt with inequality, until the economy is in the hands of the majority. And we owe Comrade Aziz a victory next year. We owe them and him a victory next year. And so let's do everything to make sure that that happens. But Aziz had a keen sense of humor. Did everything with a sense of humor. Comrade Ronnie was saying he was our commissar, and he was the chief whip of the deputy ministers. And you know, Aziz was unique. He was very senior to me, but Comrade made him his minister and he was deputy. But he never made me feel that he should not listen to me or ignore me. No. He was the best teacher I've ever had. If I turned out badly, blame Aziz. Comrade Aziz, before I sit down, used to make us laugh. He would say, "Deputy ministers, unite. You have nothing to do except your ministers." I thank you.
Thanks, my boss. One of Aziz's famous lines is about this doctor who told him to stop drinking. And he said, "I had a very simple solution. I just changed the doctor." Now we'll go on to some family tributes. And on behalf of the family, we'll start with Sam Ghani, Aziz's son.
Right, so thank you, Programme Directors of Road. I think I might need to have a word afterwards about putting me on after 3 amazing tributes like that. I think I would have rather gone first to get it out of the way. This is obviously not a eulogy that I wanted to be giving for many, many more years. But even at this saddest of times, it's heartwarming to see how many of you have gathered here, our esteemed leadership, our family, our friends, and Aziz's comrades, to mourn the passing of Aziz, but also, as I'll come to and as we've heard already, to celebrate and take joy from his life. It was a life which was so well lived and had such a huge impact. The greatest sadness I feel at the moment comes from the unfairness of his passing before he could fulfill all of the plans that he and the incomparably brilliant Angela had following her retirement. But the joy comes both from my memories and from the inspiration we should all take from how his life was lived and the service he gave both to the nation and as a true internationalist. If you allow me a few personal memories, Aziz's approach to parenting could be probably diplomatically described as a bit slapdash at times. One of the earliest memories I have is of him sat outside what, if I was looking to somebody I might call a tea house, but let's be honest, it was a pub. Sat outside a pub on the Portobello Road in West London, where I grew up, with a newspaper and a drink. He played on my competitive streak. Go again, faster this time. So I'd run off again, round the block, again and again, allowing him to have a nice and very peaceful, largely uninhibited drink. At an early age, I should have learned enjoyment of his tactical nous. Fast forward about 15 years, and I got a call when I was down at Sussex University, where I was a student, following in Aziz and Aesop and President Mbeki's footsteps. It was Aziz saying he'd just arrived in London and come up and meet him for a drink. As usual, very little notice. It was that evening he was talking about. Okay, I said, which hotel are you staying at? No, he said, we're not in a hotel, we're at Buckingham Palace. What I didn't know, and he didn't tell me at that stage, was it was the beginning of Mandela's first state visit to the UK. So I say, okay, I'll come up, I'll meet you somewhere near the palace. No, he says, I'll get lost, come and meet me at the palace. This is a man who'd lived in London for a very long time, he could have done it. So I arrive at the palace, I go up to the policeman on the main gates, and I say, look, I know this is a bit strange, but my dad's staying here apparently. How do I get in to meet him? He looks me up and down and goes, oh, okay, go around the side. Strange enough, there is a bell. Genuinely, there's a bell on the staff entrance. I go around the side, I press the bell. Another policeman looks at me, opens the door. I go, look, I know this is very strange, but my dad's staying here. He looks very, very suspicious. He makes a call. A little bit later, a very impressively uniformed equerry turns up, full gear. He confirms my story, he takes me upstairs, and he hands me over to another, even more impressively uniformed member of staff, who I think, in my recollection, had a sword, genuinely. He looks me up and down, he takes in my shirt, my jeans, my trainers, tackies for South African audience. I think I had an SACP pin badge on as well. He looks at me and he goes, I'm terribly sorry, sir. You're not dressed for dinner with Her Majesty. I'm a Republican in the British sense, not in the American sense. Okay. He says, would you mind terribly waiting in here? We'll tell your father you've arrived. We'll bring you a drink and a sandwich. And when he's ready, he'll come and get you. So I walk in and sit down and go, this is very, very surreal. And about an hour later, Aziz pops his head round the door, says, this is where you've been bloody hiding. I go, come on, let's go to the pub. So we walk out, we go and get a drink. I turn to him and say, you could have told me what was happening. You could have come, you could have told me I was being invited. He said, I have absolutely no idea what's happening. So, honestly, to any protocol people here from the Department of Foreign Affairs, how you survived him for as long as he was in post, I have literally no idea. But in between those episodes, all the memories of trips to the cinema, the zoo, jazz gigs, as we've heard, the excitement when he'd come back from mission, when I wouldn't have seen him for months, he'd come back from Angola or Lusaka, Havana or Vietnam, and he'd explain as much as he could about where he'd been and what he'd been doing, which to a little kid growing up in London was both exciting and inspiring. There were so many wonderful memories of the warmth and happiness of a flat he shared in Tufnell Park with his wonderful partner, Anne-Marie Davis. We listening to the comrades speaking and talking and planning late at night in the kitchen there. Ronnie will remember that kitchen. President Rebecca, you'll remember that kitchen. Helping him cook lamb chops with garlic, just sitting on the sofa watching TV. Watching him work when I was volunteering in the ANC office in Penton Street in London. Going to many, many, many meetings and socials with my mum as a leading activist in the British anti-apartheid movement. My dad in the ANC, I didn't get a lot of choice in that, but it was never dull and it was always educational. His commitment, as we've heard, to the struggle was complete and unshakable. He always deployed his intellect and his intelligence in the most effective way as he engaged in the work of a movement. As he explained to me, it sometimes didn't hurt in that work if some people didn't always see quite so far behind his highly social personality. Not that his sociability was in any way a front. As so many of you here know, his friendships and his comradeships, the comradeships he shared with you, meant a very, very great deal to him. Although he could be infuriating, when he greeted someone with the greatest of warmth, we'd go outside and after a little while I'd crack and go, look, why didn't you introduce me? You always do this. And he turns to me and say, because I've got no bloody idea who that was. His hinterland of interests was deep and sustaining for him, including jazz, Irish music, detective and spy fiction, football, and after his return home, rugby. Although, as an Arsenal fan myself, his explanation of why he supported West Ham remains highly dubious. But as Ronnie couldn't even convert him to the true faith, there was no chance that I was going to be able to do so. Our shared love of great Chinese food and arguing about just about anything. I'm so very grateful that COVID notwithstanding, he got to meet and play with his granddaughter, Bethan, on all of our visits, and that she got to spend time with her papa and her much-beloved grandma, Angela. Although he didn't always express it, his family, the Pahards, the Parrots, Mayor, and the database meant the world to him. This is why I should work on a tablet. Sorry. Although he suffered untimely losses, his mother, Amina, in the year I was born, Anne-Marie Davis, just as they were planning their return to South Africa together in 1991, my stepsister Zinzi, and the many comrades and friends who fell in struggle or died in exile before they could come home. His joy in life always stayed strong and unbroken. And in Angela, he was so incredibly lucky to find the wonderful happiness and true partnership that filled his life in these last decades. I know it's time to conclude before Director of Ceremonies number 2 comes and pulls me off. I know time's tight, but to conclude, I want to paraphrase the slogan we use in the international trade union movement to mark Workers' Memorial Day annually. It's right that we mourn and remember our dead, and in fact today here I include both my father and my incredible uncles Aesop and Sinead, who have passed this summer. But it's also vital that we take inspiration from their lives and their politics to recommit ourselves to the continued fight for the living. So it's with deep, deep pride that I say, Hamagakle Dad, but also in the time-worn slogan of our Mozambican comrades, Aluta Continua. And because no Pahad ever really lets an argument go, and he would never let me get the last word in when he was here, you were still wrong in your analysis on Zimbabwe. You still owe Kabed Naidu that bottle of Jameson.
Thanks ever so much. As we've heard, Aziz was not well for some considerable period of time. And as part of the family and the person who was on Anjana's side, as they had to support Aziz, I now invite Umbali Ncube.
It is a great honor for me to be standing here on behalf of the family, the friends, and indeed Dr. Abdul, the man who gave me the hardest time ever. I really suffered. He would give me instructions and say, I'm leaving this trip at around 5 p.m. Whether it stops at 1 a.m., whatever time, he doesn't care. All he wants is to see his patient getting his medication in time, as he would have instructed. Anyway, I thank him for taking me this far and giving me the knowledge I never thought I'll get ever. Thank you. I'm going to read this on behalf of the staff and workmates that have been with me along as we walk the journey. We have come so far. Now that we have reached this point, our hearts are heavy. This is a day we never wish to witness, and your departure has left a void ache in our hearts. And it is our hope and prayer that the Lord heals us and everyone affected. It is our human nature to want to understand everything, especially in times of loss and grief. But trust requires that we lean and rely also on God, even things seem unclear. To us, you weren't just a minister, but a father, a grandfather, a mentor, above all, an unconditionally loving hero. You showed us such love and appreciation. In the tiniest of things, you never failed to show gratitude. I remember this other day, he wanted to watch TV, and he said to me, is Angina here? I said, I'm not sure, but if you want Angina to come and switch on the TV for you, you can call her. And he said, but you are here. I said, okay, fine, then I'll do it for you. As soon as I finished taking the remote, not switching the TV, he said, thank you. He appreciated everything without even showing any expression that, why didn't you call who that I wanted? But he loved me more than anyone else, as I have been the notorious, troublesome staff member. We learned so much in your presence, and we promise to apply your teachings as we go forward in this life. Rest in power, rest in peace, Minister Pahad. We will forever cherish the time spent with and around you. Thank you. And on behalf of Umam Lizzy, before she left, she said to me, Mbali, will you promise me that you will be with Mr. Pahad or you will take care of him? I said, as you wish, ma'am, I will do as you wish. And not forgetting to mention Ma'am Angina, who would say, Mbali, how can the trip stop just like that? And I'm like, ma'am, I also don't even know what's going on with this trip. Rather contact Dr. Trip. And she would be like, oh my God, Dr. Trip,
I mean, why do you do that? Or it's okay that he has open borders.
Mr.
Somebody was
President-
in your position, not quite as good, said this morning, oh, having open borders is a wonderful thing. I don't know why, and I think that's why